Folks, once again, it's your boy Tim with another ride-sharing video. Unfortunately, I hate to keep reporting on stories like this, but it has happened again. You know, we often talk about how unsafe it is to operate in this profession, whether you're working for Uber or Lyft, just simply ride-sharing in general. You're putting strangers in your vehicle, and things often happen. Just the other day, I had a video about a driver that was killed after the assailants carjacked another woman. Unfortunately, it happened again. So the reason I'm bringing this one to you is I want to discuss something that I believe might improve safety for drivers. And I'll invite you guys in the comments to let me know what you think about this. And by the way, subscribe to the channel. I appreciate the participation. Helps out the algorithms. But we'll talk about it on the other side of this break.
Riders continue to be the target of violence in Baltimore City. WMER2 News' Ashley McDowell is here in studio with us to tell us about this latest ride-share carjacking. Ashley?
Well, Kelly, police are looking for a group of suspects after a Lyft driver was robbed and this time also abducted.
Every time when I pick up the customer, I get scared.
Anan Sarand drives for rideshare on a regular basis and says he drives at night, but feels worried after hearing about the rideshare drivers getting carjacked and robbed.
Nowadays, I stop after 10. Maximum I goes to 11. Otherwise, I stop at 10 because, nobody knows what happens. That's why it is very scary.
It started Wednesday night in Brooklyn, where, according to a police report, a Lyft driver was picking up someone from the app that he thought was a customer. Once the driver pulled up to the pickup location, 4 men got into the car. When arriving at the destination, one of the men asked the driver to go a couple more blocks. The suspect got out of the car to approach the windows with handguns pointed at the victim. Under the threat of being killed, the victim gave over his iPhone, password, and wallet and cleared his Apple Watch. They drove around for 10 minutes when the suspects stopped in the alleyway of the 1200 block of North Longwood Street. The victim was then told to get into the trunk as they were going to use his car and app to pick up and rob more people. The car began to reverse out of the alley. That's when the victim pulled the emergency lever and popped open the trunk. He then took off running, looking for help, until he found an Uber driver who let him use a phone to call 911. The suspects, who may be between 16 and 21, and the vehicle have still not been found.
I usually feel safe. That's actually really scary.
Sean Oliver was waiting on his rideshare. After hearing about the carjackings, he says he will be more aware by checking the name and photo of the driver, but states it's best to comply.
Honestly, just give them what they want because they're in a way worse situation than you are typically, and your life is a lot more valuable than a cell phone or couple of dollars.
WMAR reached out to Lyft for more information on how these kind of situations are handled. A Lyft spokesperson sent a statement expressing that safety is their top priority. They have reached out to the driver to provide assistance and are ready to work with law enforcement in any investigation. Just last month, a rider was robbed outside Horseshoe Casino. We also told you about other instances where Baltimore City Police say people were using the rideshare app to carjack the drivers and use the driver's phone to pick up victims to also rob. Police say arrests have been made and they are working with other law enforcement on the cases.
All right, Ed.
This has got to stop. This is just becoming unacceptable. Now, as you see, this gentleman stated that 4 guys got in his car. I mean, obviously, sometimes dudes will get together and go clubbing, but shit, 4 men get in your car, 4 hard legs, to some degree, that alone should draw attention, unless they look like they're in a real damn happy mood, like they're going to a bachelor party or something like that. But 4 dudes getting in your car alone should draw some ire. Certainly, I would implore you to pay attention to how folks are dressed. I know with the pandemic coming to an end, there's still people wearing masks around, but 4 young gentlemen, you're not going to find 4 dudes together wearing masks in honor of COVID, at least, to defend against to defend against COVID. If you see 4 dudes together wearing masks, be cautious about that. Now, this gentleman in this particular news story, you see he was put in the trunk and they took away all his electronics, his Apple Watch, his phone, and things like that. I want to run that. We're going to be discussing that because I want to give you something I believe that could improve our safety. Shout out to the driver that was interviewed that said he does not want to drive after 10 p.m. I've told you before, at least from my own humble opinion, anything after dark increases your safety risk significantly. Now, I understand in a lot of markets, particularly on weekends, That's when a lot of folks make their money. But make no mistake about it, when you're driving after hours, the risks are far more substantial than they are during the day. Particularly, the later you drive, the worse it gets. You know, if you're driving after hours, I'm talking between 5 and 9 p.m. where it may be dark now that we're in the winter months. Not as bad. But when you're talking about when the clubs close at 2 o'clock in the morning, or in some of the bigger cities, 5 o'clock in the morning, when you're out there between, 2 and 6 a.m., that is the time that it is ripe for drama. So I don't know how much more money you're making, but I would basically, that's a conversation. I would advise you have a conversation with yourself and really debate if that's really worth your safety between 2 and 6 a.m. I understand I've made videos about carrying weapons in your car, everything from mace to knives to even firearms. But 4 dudes in the car at the same time, you better be real quick on the draw. 4 dudes at the same time coming at you. So it appears that they are using our vehicles to commit secondary crimes. So that's what's happening here. Like in this case, you see they took the guy's phone, took the guy's Apple Watch, all his electronics, and then put him in the trunk. What they're doing is they're carjacking us to use our cars to commit a secondary offense. And the problem with this, which is the reason they're doing it, is it's easier. Like if you want to go out and carjack somebody, you generally have to walk up to somebody, stick a gun in their face, and whether they're at a gas pump or somewhere out. But in our case, because we are opening up our doors to strangers anyway, you're allowing a bad guy in the car and essentially giving him the ability to take you to a desolate location where the robbery can be more efficient. Get in your car and tell you, well, take me down this alley. I got to go to this house or whatever. And now you're in the prime position to be robbed or whatever else they want to do to you. So they're starting to switch over to folks like us from when it used to be pizza drivers, folks delivering pizzas were good for that, or just regular citizens at gas stations and things like that. We're a lot more desirable of a target to some degree because we not only let them in the car, and it's a hell of a lot easier to jack somebody when you're already in the car sitting behind them than out in the street where they can scream or take off running, and they can have us take them somewhere where it makes the robbery easier. You may take somebody to an alley, to a vacant lot or something like that, and then that's when the robbery kicks off. There's nobody around. There's no way to scream. Drivers do this all the time. Just keep going, go up the block, turn here, go down this alley. And now you're in the perfect position for that. So be cautious of that, and certainly 4 dudes getting in your car. All these type of things can be red flags. So what could increase safety? Well, I believe it is twofold. First of all, Uber and Lyft, the ride-sharing companies, need to make it where only the individual on the profile picture can request rides that they're going to be involved in. In other words, if you request a ride, you have to be in the vehicle. You can't request rides for strangers and other people. That's the first thing. So, yeah, if you want to request a ride for your kids, yeah, but your ass got to be in the car. We don't want to show up to pick people up and someone that looks totally different from what's on the app gets in your vehicle. I understand it's beneficial to Uber or Lyft because they get more rides. I had somebody book a ride for me that was in a different town. They were in a different city than the boyfriend that got in the car. So they're absolutely nowhere around. And you will have this type of stuff happen. I'm assuming that you guys have had it happen. So that's the first issue I believe would improve safety if all of the rides were taken by people who are actually on the profile picture. Just increases the paper trail, the data trail. So I don't know if we can get Uber or Lyft to do that because it's obviously they only focus on the money. They don't give a shit about us, but that absolutely needs to be done. The second, and this is more applicable to people who drive full-time or specifically night drivers. The ride-sharing companies, Uber and Lyft, should give you some type of discount for a vehicle partition. Certainly if you drive full-time. The problem is this business does not pay enough damn money to permanently alter your car or do anything, to really put money back in your business because most ride-share drivers ain't making shit to begin with. But just like in the taxi business, They used to have partitions between the front and back seats. And in Chicago, like where I was from, a lot of major cities, that partition was bulletproof. So now you don't have to worry about passengers feeling on you, touching on, you know, some people like to touch when they talk. Hey, you know, how about them cowboys? And they go touching on your shoulder or some shit. They can't do that if there's a partition. Drill a few holes in it so that the audio comes through, and you can even have a cup in it so that if a person needs to put a tip or something, some type of monetary value item, they can put it through some type of little divider or whatever, but it would stop them from having physical contact with the driver. So I believe that that would significantly improve safety. Certainly when it comes to women being sexually assaulted by passengers, you can't get to the person. So Uber and Lyft, particularly for drivers with a certain amount of rides, someone who has shown a certain amount of commitment to the company, should vouch for that to be put in the vehicle. They really should. They should vouch for that. There's no shortage of drivers now that are being violated. Some outright are losing their lives doing this for a living. It's the least they could fucking do. So I don't know what it would cost to put a partition in a vehicle. I don't even know where to get it done. You guys can feel free to let me know in the comments what you think. If they were going to do that to your vehicle, would you be down with it? I'm going to assume folks who would be down with it are people who drive for Uber or Lyft for a substantial amount of hours per week. But this is aimed mainly at you full-time drivers. If they were offered to pay for a partition, would you be okay with it? The other thing that might improve some safety also, maybe not, they should charge for each additional adult, just like the taxi business used to. You put more adults in, the price goes up a little bit, a few dollars or whatever the case, but you should not be able to pack a person's car with a whole bunch of adults and get charged the same price you do as one. At the end of the day, it's more wear and tear on the car because now you're carrying around a hell of a lot more weight. If you put 4 of me in a car, talking about over 1,000 pounds as opposed to one. It's going to be more, it's going to be more strenuous on your vehicle, your shocks, your fuel, everything. At the very least, charge them an extra $1 or $2. Uber has given this shit for so cheap because at the end of the day, we absorb all of the overhead for them being able to do that. But make no mistake about it, more people in your vehicle does cost you more money. Maybe only a little bit more per trip, but nevertheless, it is more money. You're carrying around a bunch of more weight in your vehicle. You should be able to charge an extra $1 or $2 like the taxi business is. So I want to get your take. What do you think in the comments section? If some of the biggest features you believe might improve safety in this business, because we need to start getting more of this shit to Uber or Lyft, or at the very least some type of expose reporter, because this is happening often. I mean, I'm doing videos on it, and I just kind of got in the game not long ago, and I'm able to find news stories are happening almost every other day where drivers are being carjacked, murdered, they're, put in the freaking trunk. The last 2 stories I did featured drivers being abducted. The last 2 stories I did featured somebody being abducted. One featured one of the drivers losing their lives. So at the very least, we do have to realize that this is a very unsafe profession, and you got to start looking out on your own, because the ride-sharing companies are putting felons in your vehicle, doing a pathetic job with background checks. And until something changes, this is going to keep happening again. So shout out to the driver in that video that suggested he's only going to do this up to about 10 o'clock. I believe that, there's nothing but cops and crooks on the streets after midnight. So I don't know how much more you guys are making after the wee hours of the morning in your markets, but whatever it is, I question if it's even worth it. So let me know in the comments, what do you think? Safety features. Would you be in favor of putting a partition in your vehicle if Uber or Lyft paid for it or gave you a decent amount of contribution toward it? It's your boy Tim. I'll catch you in the next video.